She arrived quietly, yet the galaxy could not ignore her. From the moment her ship entered the orbit of the distant planet, the stars themselves seemed to bend around her. Her form was unlike anything any species had ever seen. Tall, towering, radiating heat and light so intense that even the strongest alien males dared not come near. Their ships would circle her, engines humming nervously, and then retreat, afraid of her immense presence. She moved with grace despite her massive size, yet everywhere she stepped, the air shimmered with her heat, bending light and space as if the universe itself was trying to shield those nearby. No alien dared to approach her. They whispered among themselves in fear, calling her untouchable, unreachable, far too big, far too hot. They spoke of her beauty with awe, but it was the kind of awe laced with terror. They admired her strength and power, but trembled at the thought of drawing near. She could feel their eyes on her, watching from afar, and though the attention should have made her feel powerful, it only made her feel lonely. The admiration that should have been a gift became a curse, a constant reminder that no one truly wanted her close. For centuries she wandered through planets and stars, never settling, never finding companionship. She had friends once, long ago, in stories and legends, but those beings were long gone. Now all that remained was her form, her radiance, her size, a beacon that repelled rather than welcomed. She tried to smile at the distant watchers, hoping to invite them closer, but even her smile felt like fire. Alien hearts quivered and their courage faltered. Even the softest gesture became dangerous to those around her. She longed for someone who could see beyond her overwhelming presence, someone who would not be blinded by her heat or intimidated by her size. She wondered if such a being existed, somewhere in the vast reaches of space, but with each passing year that hope dimmed. She began to accept the truth that perhaps no one could ever approach her, that she was destined to remain alone, admired but never loved. Then one day it happened. A small human ship appeared on the horizon. The aliens watching from nearby whispered nervously, "A human, are they foolish enough to try?" The ship descended slowly, landing with a gentle hum, almost careful not to disturb her. And from it a human stepped out. He was small, frail even by alien standards, nothing like the towering warriors or mighty leaders who usually studied her from afar. But there was something different in him. He did not bow, did not avert his gaze, did not retreat. He simply looked up at her and smiled. The smile was simple, warm, and unafraid. It carried no fear of her heat, no hesitation at her size, no awe that bordered on terror. It was the first genuine smile she had seen directed at her in centuries. A smile that saw her as she was, not as a danger or a curiosity. For a moment she froze, unsure of what to feel. Confusion, disbelief, and a spark of hope tangled inside her heart. Could it be true? Could this tiny being, fragile and small, truly not fear her? He spoke softly, his voice gentle yet steady. "Hello, I'm not afraid of you." The words were simple, but to her they were like music. She wanted to believe them, but she had been alone too long. She had been worshipped, feared and avoided. And now suddenly a human stood before her, unafraid, smiling, willing to meet her presence without flinching. A tiny part of her wanted to reach out, to see if this courage was real. But another part held back, scarred by centuries of loneliness and rejection. And yet, she did not move away. Something in her told her that perhaps, just perhaps, this human could see her the way no one else had ever dared. For the first time in countless years, she felt curiosity. And with that curiosity came a faint, flickering hope, a hope that maybe, finally, she was not completely alone. The humans aboard their tiny ship watched in awe as the towering figure before them shifted slightly. She radiated warmth so intense that even standing nearby made the air ripple. The aliens observing from afar shook their heads in disbelief. None had ever seen such bravery from a human. Every other species had kept their distance, whispering warnings, turning away in fear. Yet here, a single human stood close, unflinching, gazing up at her with wide, curious eyes. She tilted her massive head, unsure of what to make of him. No one has ever dared to come this close, she thought. Every alien male she had ever known had either cowered or fled. Some had even tried to approach, drawn by curiosity or pride. But her heat and her presence had always been too much. They were weak and their courage was fragile. And now, a human, a tiny, fragile human, stood before her, smiling as if nothing about her form was frightening. The human spoke softly, his voice carrying across the space between them. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, looking directly into her glowing eyes. There was no fear, no awe-laced trembling in his tone, only a calm acceptance. His words were like water on a scorching desert, unexpected, refreshing, and almost impossible to believe. She felt a strange sensation she had not experienced in centuries, curiosity tinged with hope. Could someone truly see past her size? Could someone truly look at her as a being? Not a threat or a marvel too dangerous to approach. She wanted to believe it, but the weight of centuries of loneliness made her hesitant. What if he regrets it? She thought. What if he realizes the danger too late? The aliens around them whispered nervously. He is foolish. He cannot survive. He cannot understand. Their voices carried fear and doubt, but the human ignored them. He crouched slightly to make himself smaller, yet he did not turn away. I don't mind, he said softly. I just want to know you. Her enormous form shifted slightly, a movement that could have shattered smaller ships, but she restrained herself. She studied him closely. His eyes were steady, unafraid. His hand reached out slowly, hesitating but not retreating. It hovered near her radiant aura, a small but brave gesture in the presence of such overwhelming power. And she did not recoil. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. The aliens who had been watching held their collective breath. No one had dared this before, and most expected disaster. But nothing happened. The human remained unharmed. He smiled again, small and gentle, and whispered, I just want to be your friend. A warmth bloomed inside her, different from the radiant heat of her body. It was softer, gentler, and almost frightening in its unfamiliarity. She had never had anyone approach her for friendship, for genuine connection without fear or ulterior motive, and yet here he was, simple, kind, fearless. The idea was so foreign that she could barely speak. Her massive form leaned forward slightly, curiosity outweighing caution. You are not afraid? She asked, her voice a low hum, trembling with disbelief. He shook his head slowly, eyes never leaving hers. No, I see you. Not the size, not the heat, not the fear others feel. I see you, the word struck her heart. She had lived for centuries surrounded by fear and reverence, but never love. She had been admired, feared, worshipped, and avoided. And now, for the first time, someone had the courage to look at her with acceptance, to look at her and smile. A tear of light shimmered along her radiant face, unnoticed by many, but the human saw it. He smiled wider, reaching just a little closer, and though her massive heart thudded nervously, she felt the tiniest spark of hope. Perhaps finally, she had found someone brave enough to reach her, someone who could see beyond what the galaxy had always told everyone to fear. And in that moment, something changed inside her. A seed of trust took root, fragile but real. For the first time in countless years, she dared to imagine that maybe, just maybe, she was not completely alone. Different. Not intimidating, not cautious, not fearful, just gentle, warm, and steady. For the first time in countless years, she felt that maybe someone could truly understand her. But understanding was a fragile thing, easily broken, and centuries of isolation had taught her to protect herself. She lowered her massive head slightly, the glow of her radiant form dimming as if to shield him from the overwhelming heat she carried. Her voice trembled as she spoke, soft and uncertain. No one has ever dared come close. Everyone flees. Everyone fears me. She paused, ashamed of the loneliness she had carried for so long. I am too big, too hot, too strong. They admire me, but they do not want me near. The human crouched to her level, small and delicate against her enormous frame. He looked up at her with unshakable eyes, unafraid of her brilliance or size. I see you, he said simply. Not the size, not the power, not the heat. I see you. She blinked, struggling to believe it. No alien male had ever said such a thing. They had only whispered about her beauty or whispered their fear. But to be seen, truly seen and accepted, it was overwhelming. A tear of light shimmered down her cheek, almost unnoticed in the glow of her radiant body. The human extended his hand slowly, not reaching for her, just offering presence, offering trust. I don't care about the fear. I don't care about what others think. I just want to know you. Her massive form quivered at his words, a mixture of hope and disbelief coursing through her. She had longed for this kind of connection, but had buried the desire deep inside, fearing it could never be fulfilled. Yet here he was, standing calmly, smiling gently, willing to see her as she truly was. She took a cautious step closer. The heat of her body made the air shimmer, waves of radiant energy dancing around him. He did not step back. Instead, he raised his hand small against her vastness and touched her arm lightly. It was safe. It was warm. It was real. I have been alone for so long, she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. Admired, feared, worshipped, but never loved, never cared for, and now, you are here and I... Her words faltered. She had never spoken of her loneliness aloud. Even her closest memories were shadowed by the emptiness of isolation. I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. The human's smile softened. He did not speak immediately, just held her gaze. Then he said gently, You don't have to know right away. I'll wait. I'll stay. You don't have to be afraid of me. Her radiant aura shimmered more softly around him, as if responding to the calmness he radiated. She had never experienced patience like this, never had someone willing to wait for her to let her set the pace. Her heart, or what she called her heart, thumped with a strange fluttering rhythm. Could it be possible that someone small, fragile, and human could bring such courage to her enormous world? She lowered herself even closer, careful not to overwhelm him with her size, careful not to push him away. You are not afraid of me? She asked again, almost hoping he would say he was. He shook his head gently. No, I'm not afraid. I see the real you. Not the size, not the fire, not the power. I see you. And I like what I see. For a long moment she simply stared, her radiant eyes softening. She had dreamed of connection, dreamed of someone who could look past her overwhelming presence. And now, finally, that dream had walked right into her life. The loneliness she had carried for centuries did not disappear instantly, but a seed of hope began to grow. Perhaps for the first time ever, she could imagine a future where someone would not run from her light but walk alongside it. Perhaps she could allow herself to trust again. Her massive hand lowered slowly, hovering near him. She did not touch yet. Fear still lingered, but the gesture alone spoke volumes. For the first time in eons, she felt the fragile, precious stirrings of hope and trust, and she realized with a sudden clarity that the human before her might be the first to see her not as a force to fear, but as someone truly worth loving. And in that realization, she dared to take the smallest step toward connection, letting curiosity and hope guide her instead of fear. The human's hand hovered near her massive form, small and steady, a gesture so brave it made her heart, or the strange rhythm she felt in her chest, flutter. She had spent centuries towering above the galaxy, admired, feared, and avoided, yet never had anyone approached her with such gentle courage. Every previous encounter ended in distance, in whispered warnings, in fear. But this human, he was different. He did not flinch, did not step back, did not tremble. He simply extended his hand, willing to reach out to her, and in that small act, he said more than words ever could. She froze for a moment, unsure. Her radiant energy pulsed around him like a sun's corona, intense and overwhelming, and instinct screamed at her to pull back. He could be hurt. He could burn. Why is he not afraid? But when she looked into his calm, unwavering eyes, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. Trust. Slowly, cautiously, she lowered her massive hand toward him. The air between them shimmered and rippled from her heat, waves of energy that could have crushed anything smaller than her own ship. Yet he did not move. He stayed still, small but determined, eyes fixed on her, a smile on his lips that carried warmth far greater than any heat she radiated. Then their fingers brushed. The spark was immediate, but not destructive. Not pain, not fire, just connection. A tremor ran through her massive body, a sensation both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time she realized that someone could truly reach her, touch her without fear, without awe, without disaster. The human looked at her hand and then into her eyes and simply said, "You're beautiful. Not just your form, but you." Her enormous chest tightened as she felt a swell of emotion rise within her. No alien had ever spoken like that. They had worshipped her form from afar or feared her power, but no one had ever dared to see her as more than heat and size. And now this tiny human, fragile in every measurable way, had looked past all of that and touched the real her. Tears shimmered along her radiant face, tiny flecks of light that would have been invisible to most observers but were clear to him. He did not flinch from them. Instead, he smiled wider and gently squeezed her hand. "I'm not afraid. I just want to be here with you." Something inside her shifted. She lowered herself even closer, careful not to overwhelm him with her massive form. Her voice, deep and soft, rumbled like distant thunder. I have been alone for so long, admired, feared, but never loved. No one has ever wanted to touch me, to see me, to be near me without fear. The human shook his head slowly, his small hand still resting against hers. I'm here. I see you. Not your size, not your fire, not your strength. I see you. And I like what I see. That's all that matters to me. Her radiant glow softened, warmth still radiating but no longer overwhelming. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean just a little into his presence, to let someone approach her without recoil. Her massive form trembled, not from danger, not from energy, but from the fragile, terrifying beauty of trust. She realized something profound. She did not have to hide her heat or her size to be loved. She did not have to isolate herself to protect others from her power. For the first time, someone had accepted her as she truly was, and more than that, wanted to be near her. They stayed like that for a long moment, hands barely touching, eyes locked, hearts, or whatever they called them, beating together across the impossible divide of size and species. Around them, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching, realizing that perhaps true connection did not depend on form or fear, but on courage and the willingness to reach out. And in that quiet, fragile moment, she understood something she had not believed possible. She could be touched, she could be seen, she could be loved, and this tiny human, brave enough to reach across the impossible, had just given her that gift. The calm of their connection did not last long. As she lingered near the human, letting herself feel something she had not in centuries, the other aliens could no longer remain silent. Rumors and whispers had grown into anger. Alien males, humiliated by their own fear and jealousy, began to gather. They could not accept that a human, a fragile, tiny human, had dared what none of them had. To approach her, to see her as more than a force of awe, a blazing sun they could not touch. You cannot stay here. One bellowed, his voice echoing across the planet. You are too dangerous, too powerful. He is nothing. You will destroy him if you let him stay. She turned slowly, radiant form glowing brighter, a wave of heat washing across the gathered aliens. Her heart, or the strange rhythm she felt in her chest, thudded with fear and anger. These voices, these accusations, were all she had ever known from her kind. They had never truly tried to understand her. They had only feared her, worshipped her, and now when she allowed someone close, they sought to punish both of them. The human did not flinch. He stepped closer to her, small and unafraid, eyes fixed on hers. I don't care what they think, he said softly but firmly. I see her. I see you. And I'm not afraid. Her gaze softened. She had felt alone for so long, weighed down by centuries of isolation, by admiration without understanding, by fear masquerading as respect. And now he was here, standing small and fragile, yet braver than any alien male who had ever looked upon her. They will never understand, she murmured, voice trembling. They will always fear me. They cannot see past the heat, past the size, past what they call power. He smiled gently, lifting her massive hand slightly with his tiny one. Then we don't need them to understand. We just need each other. I'm not afraid and I'm not leaving. Anger and fear boiled among the aliens. Some attempted to step forward to intimidate the human, but the aura around her flared slightly, not in attack but in warning. She had never been so protective of anyone. Back! She commanded, her voice rumbling like distant thunder. The words carried a weight no alien could ignore. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the human's calm voice repeating, I see her. I see her. I'm not afraid. That small phrase became a shield stronger than any weapon. She realized that her connection with him gave her strength she had never known. Her warmth no longer felt like isolation. It felt like a fire that could protect rather than repel. You are insane, another alien cried. You could destroy him. Do you not see how weak he is compared to you? She shook her head slowly. No, he is stronger than you realize. Stronger than anyone here. His courage. His heart. It is bigger than anything I have felt in centuries. I will not let fear dictate how I live anymore. The human's hand stayed in hers, small and steady. We'll face this together, he said. Whatever they say, whatever they think, they cannot take this from us. Her heart, or what she felt as her heart, swelled with gratitude and a fierce determination. She had spent centuries isolated, admired but untouchable, feared and avoided. Now she felt something she never thought possible. Someone willing to stand with her not for power or glory, but because they chose to see her for who she truly was. The aliens slowly began to retreat, some in fear, some in disbelief, realizing they could not sway the bond growing between her and the human. The small human had achieved what none of them could. He had bridged the impossible divide, showing courage, warmth, and trust that even the largest of beings could respect. She looked down at him, eyes shining with light and emotion. I cannot believe you stayed, she whispered. He smiled up at her, unafraid. I told you. I'm not afraid. I just want to be with you. And in that moment she understood something profound. The universe could fear her, the galaxy could judge her, but no one's opinion could overpower the connection she had found in him. They had faced the first real challenge together, and they had survived it not through strength alone, but through trust, courage, and a choice to see each other beyond fear. For the first time in countless years, she realized she was no longer alone. And she would never be alone again as long as he chose to stay by her side. Days passed, and the human did not leave. He stayed beside her, small and steady, unafraid of her towering form or the radiant heat that had kept others away for centuries. She watched him move among her surroundings, careful and thoughtful, yet never distant, never intimidated. With each passing moment, she felt a warmth growing inside her, different from her blazing aura. A warmth of trust, comfort, and something she had never known: hope. She began to let her guard down. Her radiant energy, once overwhelming and dangerous, softened when he was near. The trembling heat that had kept everyone at a distance became gentle, almost comforting, like sunlight on a quiet morning. And he noticed. He smiled, small but genuine, and often reached to touch her hand or shoulder, always careful, always respectful. With each touch, she felt herself trusting him more, letting him in where no one else had ever been allowed. She began to speak of things she had never shared with anyone. Stories of planets she had wandered, civilizations she had observed, centuries of isolation that had left her lonely and fearful. And he listened, truly listened, never interrupting, never judging. He asked questions not to satisfy curiosity, but to understand her, to meet her where she was, in the quiet spaces inside her radiant being. I have never had someone who stayed, she admitted one evening, her glowing eyes softening as she looked down at him. Not just looked, not just admired, stayed. And now you do not leave. You do not run. You see me as I am. He took her enormous hand in his, small fingers resting lightly against her radiant skin. I'm here, he said softly. I see you. All of you. And I'm not going anywhere. She shivered at the contact, not from fear, not from her heat, but from something tender, fragile, and unfamiliar. For centuries, she had never allowed anyone to touch her without caution. She had been admired, worshipped, even feared, but never truly known. And now here he was, seeing her completely, accepting every part of her, and she could not find the words to describe the gratitude and emotion swelling inside her. The aliens around them watched from a distance, slowly learning that perhaps courage and understanding were more powerful than fear. If this tiny human could see past her size, past her blazing heat, past the centuries of isolation, maybe others could too. Yet for her, none of that mattered. She only needed him. Only his warmth, his patience, and his willingness to remain by her side mattered. One quiet moment.
She lowered herself almost fully to his level,
Her massive form folding in a way that seemed impossible to the untrained eye. I want to trust you, she whispered, her voice trembling like distant thunder. I want to believe that I am not alone, that someone can care for me without fear. He smiled gently, brushing a small hand against her radiant cheek. Then trust me, he said. I will not leave. I will not hurt you. You do not have to be afraid anymore. Her glowing form softened even further, warmth radiating in gentle waves rather than fierce intensity. For the first time, she felt the possibility of something she had never thought possible. Love. Not the awe-filled admiration that others had shown, not the fearful reverence, but love. Real, tender, courageous love. And in that quiet, fragile moment, she realized that the human had done more than approach her or touch her. He had changed her. He had shown her that trust could exist even after centuries of isolation, that connection could bloom even where fear had ruled for eons. and in his steady presence she allowed herself to feel it fully. Her radiant eyes met his, and she smiled, truly smiled, without fear, without hesitation, without caution. The smile that had once only inspired awe and terror now held something more: hope, courage, and the promise of love. For the first time in centuries, she did not feel alone, and she knew, deep inside, that as long as he stayed by her side, she would never be alone again. The suns rose over the distant planet, bathing the landscape in golden light, and for the first time in centuries she felt truly at peace. The human stood beside her, small and steady, unafraid of her massive, radiant form. Their hands were still intertwined, the warmth of their connection stronger than any fear or awe that had ever surrounded her. She realized that the loneliness that had weighed on her for so long had finally lifted, replaced by something fragile, powerful and real: trust, companionship, and love. She looked down at him, her glowing eyes softening. "I never believed anyone could stay," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Not anyone, not even for a moment. I have been alone for centuries, admired, feared, but never loved. And now you are here. You stayed. You see me as I am." He smiled, small but radiant in his own way. "I told you I would," he said. "I'm not afraid. I just want to be with you. That's all that matters." She felt her heart, or the strange rhythm she carried, thump in a way it had never done before. It was not fear. It was not pride. It was joy, hope, and the fragile beauty of being truly seen. She had always been untouchable, untamed, a blazing sun that others admired from afar but never dared to approach. And yet here he was, choosing to walk beside her, fearless, gentle, patient. The other aliens, who had once trembled at her presence, watched from a distance. Slowly, some began to approach, curiosity softening their fear. They had witnessed something remarkable. A human, fragile and small, had bridged the impossible divide, seeing her not as a force to fear, but as someone worth connection and love. Their whispers shifted from awe to respect, and even some of the once jealous males looked on with quiet understanding. She lowered herself fully to his level, her massive form folding with careful grace. I never thought this could happen," she admitted, voice trembling with wonder. "I never believed anyone could care for me as I am without fear. But you showed me it is possible." He reached up, brushing a small hand against her radiant cheek. "It is possible," he said softly. "I choose you. I see you, and I will always choose you." A tear of light shimmered along her glowing face, and this time it was not a tear of loneliness, but of release. Centuries of isolation, of fear, of being untouchable and unapproachable fell away. In its place bloomed something she had never dared to imagine. Love, simple and pure, fierce and tender all at once. She leaned closer, careful not to overwhelm him with her heat, and rested her massive forehead against his. The small human did not flinch. He simply closed his eyes and smiled, letting the connection between them strengthen with each heartbeat. For the first time she understood that her size, her heat, her power, they were no longer walls, but gifts that could protect and sustain the love she had finally found. Together, they stood as the suns rose higher, casting golden light across the planet and bathing them both in warmth. It was not just her radiant aura that shone. It was the light of trust, courage, and the bond they had forged against impossible odds. She realized that the universe had always admired her for her size and power, but no one had ever dared to see her heart, until now, and in that realization she smiled fully, truly, without fear or caution. The human beside her mirrored the smile, and in that shared moment the impossible felt real. For the first time in eons she was not just admired, not just feared, not just seen from afar. She was loved. She was chosen. She was understood. The galaxy may have whispered about her size, her heat, her untouchable form, but now it would whisper something greater. That love, courage and trust could bridge even the widest divide, and that sometimes the smallest beings could show the greatest bravery. She took a deep, radiant breath and looked down at the human, her smile brighter than the suns above. "Thank you," she whispered, "for staying, for seeing me, for choosing me." He smiled back, unafraid and unwavering. "Always," he said. And in that moment the universe seemed to pause, as if acknowledging a new truth that no matter how big, how powerful, or how impossible one might seem, love could find a way, and she was finally home.